Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. All of these watches are in stock and ready to roll. So if you're watching this today, reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for all of your pricing and purchase questions regarding these watches. So right now we're going to discuss a model that came out in 2019, 39 millimeters in white gold and a 100-piece limited edition with a Flinke enamel dial. This is the Jaeger-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Perpetual Enamel. So Flinke is when you have guilloche and then translucent lacquer, or more luxuriously, enamel on top of that. So that's what we've got. We've got a dial base made of white gold cut on an engine with several different reductive guilloche cuts. And then over that, several layers of translucent blue enamel applied, fired, applied again, fired, until you get a beautiful buildup of a glassy sheen. And what's really impressive here is JLC has achieved an enamel that doesn't have any orange peel rippling to it. It's as smooth as lacquer, but it is enamel, which is spectacular. Easy watch to wear, 39 by 10.1 thick by 45.8 lug to lug. In white gold, it's got nice weight to it, this 100-piece limited edition, very distinctive. 70-hour power reserve, automatic winding, of course a manufacturer-based caliber with hacking seconds. So thanks to the presence of the hacking seconds function and IWC's Kurt Klaus sequential programmed perpetual calendar, we can set this watch to intervals as small as 1 second, but also as large as years, decades, centuries, and millennia. Throw it on the wrist. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference, where it's really nice, comfortable, short across the wrist and thin. So I could recommend this for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference, and a great way to get into JLC watchmaking. On the back, the latest version of caliber 868, free sprung. It's been through the Master 1000 hours control, which is a 1,000-hour test of the whole watch, not just the accuracy of the movement. 70-hour reserve ceramic bearings, unidirectional winding, genuine fire-blued screws, a wonderful engine to propel this machine forward into the next century. And the watch will keep track of that. So perpetual calendar, no need to reset until the year 2100, provided you keep it going. And we have a northern and southern hemisphere moon phase indicator, plus a little danger zone indicator above the hand so you know when not to use the pusher adjuster. Now, if you want a JLC watch, you want to get into horlogerie, but you want something that's priced at, frankly, Omega money, not entry-level Patek Philippe. Well, we move on from the perpetual calendar to the Master Compressor Chronograph. This came out in 2004. It was designed by the great Magali Maitrier during her purple patch of inspiration as the lead men's watch designer at JLC. And she said this was her favorite piece. 41.5 millimeters in diameter, the Master Compressor Chrono is a fascinating watch that offers a lot of value, but never more so than when on this rare factory bracelet, which is generally not seen. So what's really cool here is every link is removable, and though it might appear at first glance like we're looking at a pin sleeve bracelet, it's brilliantly constructed. Each of these pins is actually a spring bar, so you can disassemble, size, and reassemble the bracelet using nothing but a strap tool. There's a EasyLink style latch over snap down adjustment system that gives you 2.5 millimeters of incremental adjustability on each side of the clasp, and then it's quadruple trigger double folding clasp. So it's a remarkably over-engineered component. So is the case. It's 100 meters water resistant. You can see on the reverse side, a solid rose gold medallion attests to this watch too having passed the Master 1000 hours control, which is a 6-position chronometric test, but then also for durability, water resistance, winding efficiency, and power reserve. And along those lines, this twin barrel caliber 751 manufacture movement has 65 hours of reserve. This was also JLC's first ever in-house automatic chrono caliber. Compressor crowns, you can see 100-meter water resistance. It is a column wheel vertical clutch chrono, so you get that crisp action of the column wheel and then the seamless engagement of the vertical clutch. I've heard this watch described, and the whole compressor line generally been described as somewhat French in their aesthetic, and I'm not quite sure what that means, except maybe Gaelic charm. I don't quite know where that's coming from, but they're definitely distinctive watches, in large part because of this compressor crown system. So 1/2 turn, and now the crown is unlocked, and 1/2 turn, and the crown is locked. Now, it's easy to use these if your hands are wet, sweaty, or gloved, so it can be a bit more convenient than a screw-down crown. And then you can see how it's just 1/4 turn for the chronograph pushers. We do have quick set date, we do have hacking seconds, we have a unique jumping hour disc, which is an unusual way of portraying the time, but an effective one. 41.5 millimeters in diameter. It's an easy watch to wear. If you can wear a Rolex Daytona, you can wear this. And again, this is for far less than Daytona money, but now you're talking about a watch that includes substantial hand finishing, hand assembly, a high horology house that, if not priced like Patek, is certainly on par with Patek and the like from a technical standpoint. JLC is still the largest source of movements inside of Richemont because it is the quintessential movement manufacturer, the watchmaker to the world for its own watches and then for many others. You want a full bracelet chrono that does not cost JLC money, you can still get a genuine luxury watch with no excuses asked and none given with the Omega Seamaster Diver 300-meter chrono. Now you can see this is pre-coaxial, so you've got a rock-solid bomb-proof chronometer-certified chronograph that can be serviced anywhere in the world. You do not need to take this to a brand specialist. 41.5 millimeters in steel, you can see screw-down crown, 300-meter water resistance, broadsword-style hands like those on the Diver 300-meter GMT. A 120-click unidirectional rotating dive bezel, 44-hour power reserve. You can see that there's no shortage of luminescence here, and that the watch includes the expected full fold-out diving extension and a deployant clasp with very thick gauge steel. You can see how deep and distinct the engravings still are. So this is a watch that has survived time with grace. And when you throw it on the wrist, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. It's not thin. It's a little bit chunky in that regard, but it's got a lot of sports watch presence, which is to say it has an imposing stance without being truly huge. Again, this is 41.5 millimeters in steel, a lovely watch. A chronometer, a chronograph, a 300-meter diver, and you can see it features the helium escape valve for the tiny portion of the population that is certified for saturation dives. So, okay, we're going back upscale now with Bethune. We've got the DB20. So this is the DB20 GMT. This is an interesting departure from the original DB1 case shape, and it's also very different from the DB26 case with the floating lugs that would come to define Bethune design later on. So these middle Bethunes, the early DB20 series, like the 20, the 24, they have this shingle-like case, and it's all in white gold. It's 45 millimeters, but it's only 11.7 millimeters thick. And with a screw-down crown, these were the first Bethune sports watches, being first 100 and then later 200 meters water resistant. We have fired blue titanium cabochon acting as the primary hour indices. Then we have fired blue titanium hands and dial with a microlight reductive guilloche, a drilled minute track. We have a jump hour for the second time zone. It is a jump hour in 24-hour format. We have that little dot above it, the aperture turning red during the nighttime hours. Those are cued to the hands at center to let you know when you're looking at AM and PM on center time. This is a little fired piece of titanium down here in a lighter hue to contrast with the indices, and then a power reserve indicator. Also note the use of dial side Côte de Genève, and on the reverse side, Bethune's robustly shock-protected DB2024 movement. 6 days of power reserve. It's 5 to 6 in this application. You can see that there are 4 springs for the rotor. This is a patented system by Denis Flageolet, the watchmaking founder of the company, so that, yes, you have 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs on the non-annular balance to protect it, but you also can have a very large lever arm and a broad winding system for utmost efficiency. And then you can also protect the bearing from torquing. It's supposed to rotate, but it's not supposed to torque side to side, and so these springs prevent that from happening. And to reduce friction of the rotor against the springs, little jewels have been placed to reduce the friction when they come in contact. It is a lever winding system, so it winds in both directions. If you look carefully, you can see that we actually have a yoke style balance that is one of the patented designs by Denis, and it's a combination of blue titanium and platinum masses. And he creates a new balance design every time he upgrades the technology. So through the years, you can see the passing designs and the evolution of the Bethune balance, of which there are now 10 distinct examples. We have triple parachute, also patented. By the way, this watch protected by no fewer than 6 individual patents. You can see these are individually numbered in a series of 50. A really cool watch that probably doesn't wear as large as you think for a 45. It's actually not an overbearing presence, and being fairly flat, it fits fairly well even on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. All right, this is a watch that is too big for me, and I'm going to be totally honest. HYT H4 Neo 2 Blue. So this is a model that came out 50 pieces in titanium DLC back in 2018, and this was part of the H4 family that debuted something Bethune would later make famous. But to be perfectly honest, we first saw, by the way, see, notice that there is luminova, but we first saw dynamic LED lighting on HYT. Okay, so what just happened there? We have a crown that allows us to wind up a secondary mainspring barrel that turns a dynamo that activates the LEDs. So there's no battery, there's no capacitors. This is simply a mechanical manual wind that will give you luminescence within the watch for as many times as you care to rewind. And you can see how long I had it lit. The fact that it also has luminova means you're not dependent on the dynamo, although it's probably more fun to use the dynamo. Note it is also a regulator. The meniscus between the two immiscible fluids, one clear, one blue, the meniscus marks the hour. So we have hours, minutes at center, and then seconds on the side. The 65-hour manual wind power reserve for the time, not the light, but for the time, it's mounted right here. Take a quick look at how this works. The hour advances as the meniscus advances. And as it reaches the end, remember it's a regulator, separate hours, minutes, and seconds, but as it reaches the end, you can see that it can't continue unobstructed to the opposite side. So when it reaches the end of its travel, it rapidly retrogrades back to the beginning. So 5, 6, 7, and then it continues its march around the clock. So it is a regulator and it is a retrograde. There's a sapphire grille as well as a sapphire number plate, a little track for the minutes. 51 millimeters in grade 5 titanium. I know, too big for me. And the watch includes a movement that is partially developed by Chronode, partially by its sister company Pressiflex. So all the mechanical stuff, the Swiss lever, the mainspring, the cam that drives the bellows, this is designed by Chronode. So it's a conventional Swiss lever mechanical watch underneath. There are two bellows. One contains the blue fluid, one contains the clear. And you can see there's a cam system that moves them up and down. Now, this also has a higher standard of finish than the conventional H101. This is the H401. We have nickel anthracite coated bridges that are media blasted and then mirror polished on their sides to a standard that you will not find on the 101. It is a really fun watch to wear, and it's got some clever design elements to it. For example, you can see that there is a micro adjust inside of the clasp that allows you to move in and out and fine-tune the fit. At 51 millimeters and 19.1 thick, I'm not gonna lie, this watch is too big for my wrist. I believe you need a wrist of probably 18 centimeters circumference to wear this well. I'm gonna show you just so you can see. But I think you need a wrist of 18 centimeters circumference to wear this well. Now, this is a 50-meter water-resistant screw-down crown, so this is one of the few HYT watches that's actually safe for surface swimming, so just keep that in mind. Okay, here's something more than a little bit special. From Breguet. This is the 7707 vertical perpetual calendar. So this is a very old school Breguet, just over 36 millimeters in diameter, yellow gold, and the watch is full set. So taking a look in profile, you can see that the case is cold rolled, then placed in a jig and hand finished to create these neat coined profiles. The lugs are welded on and hand finished. The strap is held on by screws and bars. The dial is a solid blank of gold that's been cut on a lathe to achieve multiple different cut patterns. And then the dial itself is a solid disc of gold that's been silvered to give you the aesthetic here. We have gold cabochon outboard of the hours, Roman numerals, assuredly. Fired steel hands, including Breguet hands at center. We have the day, we have the month, we have the leap year, and we have the date down at the bottom. And so this is a perpetual calendar. No need to reset for irregular length months or leap years. We have the Breguet secret signature flanking Roman numeral 12. It's written by hand in large form and then miniaturized by a pantograph mimicry lathe. We have a clasp, And then on the back, a version of the Piquet P71 here doing business as the Breguet 502, so automatic winding, via a unique 3/4 rotor. The movement's only 2.4 millimeters thick. This movement architecture was developed in the 70s. It was one of the first truly ultra-thin, reliable automatic movements, along with things like the Patek 240 and the JLC 920 from a comparable time frame. So the 3/4 rotor and the open barrel helps to make it a little bit thinner. You can see that the bevels are quite mirrored and beautiful. It is a high horology finish here. And then we've got a conversion done by Breguet to make this free sprung with a recessed bolt aerodynamic free sprung balance for shock resistance and precise adjustment. And along those lines, it's been adjusted in 5 positions, which is a high horology standard with beautiful stripes, polished screws, and another lathe cut on the rotor. A great watch that anyone can wear. It's really a power watch for him and her. We talked about how the dial, the case, the movement, all artisanally made and finished. And from a glorious era of Breguet elegance. This model came out around the turn of the century, and by that I mean the 21st century, and they are seldom seen. There's a lot of 5327 Perpetual calendars out there, very, very few 7707s. So this is going to be a special piece for someone. Finally, from Moritz Grossmann, we have a limited edition of 25 pieces in white gold, 41 millimeters. We've got the Atum Enamel. So in white gold, you can see we've got these lovely, super sharp welded lug profiles where the lugs are an incredibly complex shape and welded to the case and then hand finished to remove all gathered material from the weld. They are indicative of a handmade and hand-finished case that gives way to a handmade and hand-finished dial. So you can see 2 discs of enamel, one for the seconds, one for the hours and the minutes, beautifully finished. There's no orange peel, there's no rippling on this dial. Moritz Grossmann's hands are the best in the business. Like little needles, they're cut manually, finished manually, and then fired quickly and carefully to give them this uniform violet-brown hue, and you can see mirror polishing at the center of the hands and on the cannon pinion. We'll wind this up so you can see it in action, and what's really fine here is the use of a unique patented setting system. So you can see how the watch is now running. I'm going to pull the crown out. The crown snaps back into place. Now it's flush to the case. Note hacking seconds. Note the enormous in-house 14.2 millimeter free sprung balance has come to a halt. I can set my time precisely to the minute, and then a lot of times what happens when you push the crown back in on a watch after setting it so carefully, the minute hand budges. Well, not necessarily. I press this little trigger to re-engage the drive, which happens, and there's absolutely no jump or stagger to the minute hand. So precise setting that stays that way. The movement, enormous. This movement is 36.4 millimeters in diameter. It is properly sized for a large modern watch. The finish is world class. German silver bridges, broadly striped. Note the freehand engraving on both the escape wheel cock and the balance cock. Moritz Grossmann's own micrometric steel screw regulator, and because most of the adjustments are done using the masses on the balance, this is effectively a free-sprung watch. Handmade overcoil hairspring. Note the use of clear sapphires rather than synthetic rubies, even for the pallet stones on the anchor, as well as for the drivetrain. Note the triple solarization of the ratchet wheel. Note the unique extended pocket watch-inspired click. See how it's extensible and mirror finished? Now take a close look. Look at the wheels of the crown and ratchet. The wheels of the crown and ratchet feature micro-beveled teeth where they mesh, an incredibly difficult micro-finishing evolution. We do have anglage on the edge of the bridges, and you can see that this is a pillar-style, marine chronometer-style construction. So instead of having the bridges placed directly onto the plate below, pillars actually hold the bridge over the plate, a pre-Lepine design. You can also see that we have freehand engraving on the German silver bridges. All of the characters have been engraved using a burin by hand, a very special watch with golden chaton cups to hold the pivot jewels, because that's how it would have been done in the era of Moritz Grossmann, not the brand, but the man. 42-hour manual wind power reserve, 18K beat rate. It's got a pin buckle for easy adjustment. Throw it on the wrist, a work of art. Moritz Grossmann, now the best-kept secret in independent watchmaking. I used to say de Bethune, but the word is out on de Bethune. People know about them, and I helped to change that, and I'm proud of that. But Moritz Grossmann now needs your recognition. They're like a kinder, gentler, lower volume, and frankly, more detail-oriented Lunga. And yes, they do deserve that accolade. Reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details of this or any of these watches.